Oh, yeah. So, getting serious now for the next 20 minutes or until the clock starts again. You know, you guys are really lucky because over the whole month of March, we've been talking about one thing, and that is that beautiful teaching symbol that we have called the Science of Mind teaching symbol. Have you seen it? You know what it is. It's a circle, and it's got lines in it, and it's got a big V in the middle, right?
Kind of like that thing?
Yeah. Yeah, like that thing over there. Yeah, that's the one. That thing right there, yeah. Okay, so that's our symbol for the day, okay? And if you'll remember, back, oh gosh, a long time ago, the first Sunday in March, Kurt Condi came and talked to us about planting a tree and something about a beautiful woman who was on a desert island. I'm not sure what that was. Oh yeah, Brooke Shield, that one, yeah. Not sure what that had to do with anything, but it sure kept our attention, didn't it? But he was talking about what happens right here in the top of this symbol, which is we get an idea, okay? An idea comes to our mind, and then we decide to do something. The one that we talk about the most about that is the seed, the soil, and a plant. How many of you heard this before? About 9,000 times. Okay, there were hands that didn't go up, so we're going to talk about it in a minute. So if you're a farmer or a gardener, and it's almost springtime when it's not snowing, you plant a seed, okay? You get an idea to grow a garden, and you plant a seed in the soil. You plant a seed. Or you plant you decide to grow a whole garden, just not one seed. And so you plant carrots, and you plant potatoes, and you plant, I don't know what you plant, but you decide to do this garden, and you plant a garden, and you pull the weeds, and you water it, and like that, and then it starts to grow. And where it starts to grow is in this middle place right here, okay? In that middle place right there, that's what they talked about the following week, which is the law, okay? So Kurt talked about planting the seed. He talked about a cherry tree, and you plant a seed, and then 4 years later it turns into a tree, and then it, you know that stuff. But it does that all by itself. And this is what Donald talked about in the second week, was the fact that once you plant that garden or that tree, then it's up to the tree to grow, or to the seeds to grow. Because if you try to go back in and help them grow, like you pull up the seeds to make sure that they're sprouting, you kind of get in the way of everything. And in that part of the law, Donald tells us, is where our belief system works. So if you plant a tree, and then you go out about year 2 and pull it up to make sure that it's working right because you don't believe that it will, it's going to die, right? And when we decide that we want something, suppose, for example, you decided that you wanted to be, you'd lived in poverty all your life, or was never enough to go around, and then you win the lottery. What happens a great deal of the time is that the people who win the lottery blow every penny. And before long, they're right back where they started. Why is that? Because they didn't know that it was possible. They didn't accept that it was possible. If you live in a life of poverty, or if you live just at the bottom level of life, that's your comfort zone. And doing anything more than that is difficult. That's what he was talking about the second week. And then, of course, the third week is all about getting what you want. Having grown the garden, having planted the garden, you get to eat the tomatoes and the carrots and the whatever you planted. Here's the deal about that middle level, and that is if you plant carrot seeds, what do you get?
Carrots.
Okay. Not asparagus? No. Why? Because I didn't plant that seed. Okay, so that's what we've been talking about. That's what you've been talking about all month, okay, is about you getting what you want, setting intention, and getting what you really want. But nobody ever talks about the V in the middle. Have you noticed that? I was in my second year of ministry school before somebody explained what the V was to me. That was a long time coming. So we're going to talk about the V, okay? And what do you think it's all about?
Victory.
No. Okay, a quote from our friend Ernest Holmes. One of the great difficulties in this new order of thought is that we're too likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we can only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. That which we cannot prove may or may not be true, but that which we can prove certainly must be and is the truth. So you don't know that you're going to get carrots until you plant the seeds. Does that make sense? Okay, the big V in the middle is all about proving it to ourselves and to whatever else. So here's the deal. We're going to talk today overall about this and that wonderful symbol, but there's stuff you got to do too. You can't just, well, you can just put an idea into the mind, and it's going to filter through your belief system and become whatever it's going to be. But if you do it consciously, sometimes you can get better stuff. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So you have to start where you are. First of all, you got to know what you want, don't you? That would be a good idea. Because if you decide you want to go on vacation someplace and you get in your car and turn on the car and start driving, it would be good if you know where you're going. Okay? So you have to know what you want to begin with, and sometimes that's the hardest part, because we don't always know. So before you start this, because this is a pump, okay? This is a pump. And let me say this about that before we get any further. This side is straight, and that side is curved. I'll tell you what that's about. This side is about getting what you want. And this side is all about feedback. Okay? So you get what you want, and then next year you decide you want to plant corn instead of potatoes. Okay? Because you get some feedback about what you were doing and what's been going on. So it's kind of a pump. It's kind of a machine. Does that make sense? You put an idea in, you get what you want, you get some feedback, you try something else, you do something else different next time. You know what you want. That's where it starts. That's where it really starts. And then you have to start right where you are. Mary Morrissey says, don't wait for something big to occur. Start where you are with what you have, and that will always lead you into something greater. I know people who wait. Do you? I know people who wait until, I don't know, I've got more money, or I've got more time, or until the kids grow up, or until the dog dies, or until I retire, or until I get married, or until, we wait. And that's not a good idea. You start where you are. You accept what is right now in your life. You let go of what used to be. And you decide what you want. And then, this is the tough one, you accept responsibility for making it happen. Okay? Again, don't wait for something big to occur. Start where you are with what you have, and that will always lead you into something greater. Now, we can do this on an individual level, can't we? You as a person can make these decisions for yourself and what you want and what you're going to get and all that, and we can make the pump go, and we can do it again next time. You can also do it as a community. And that's one of the reasons that I think I want to talk about this today, is because this community is starting where you are right now. There have been some changes, you may have noticed. And they're wonderful changes. And sometimes we kind of want to stay where we were because it was comfortable. And sometimes we think it's somebody else's job to do it for us. And sometimes we think we're going to find a savior somewhere who's going to do it for us. And that's not going to happen. So as a community right here, you get to know what you want. You get to start where you are. You get to accept what is right now. You get to let go of what used to be. Decide what you want and accept responsibility for making it happen as a community. That's your job these days. And I know that Reverend Donald's here to help you with that, and it's wonderful that he is. So now you got a start, haven't you? You know what you want, you can put that into the beginning, but you got to have what Ernest Holmes calls a mental equivalent. What the heck is a mental equivalent? Well, what that means is you got to have kind of a picture of what it is you want. You have to have it in your brain, and you have to pretend as if it's already so. Does that make sense? We call it visualizing. So if you know what you want, and you can make a really vivid and complete picture of it in your mind and imagine it. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, about having that mental equivalent, that picture in your mind, and as you put that in your mind, then the steps to get to it are going to be easy to find. But you got to know what it is to begin with. So who do you as a community want to be? What is the future of the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living? You're the ones who know. I don't know. Reverend Donald doesn't know, but you do. And if you don't, get together and talk about it, because you should. You got a pretty good saying that you say at the beginning of the vision statement that you use. That's good. Is it who you are, and is it who you want to be? So we're building this mental equivalent right now. This is what we want. This is what I want for myself, you want for yourself. What you want for your family, your friends, you know, your everyday living, your job, your relationship, your health. And of course, practitioners can help you with all of this. And once you figure out what you want, then it gets easier. It has to be kind of four things. It has to be vivid, so that you can imagine it vividly. It has to be complete, all of the possibilities. And it has to be accessible. Now, that's a silly thing to say, but it's important to say. For example, if I had a dream that I wanted to be the prima ballerina in the New York Ballet, what are the chances? Not that good. So I have to have a dream that I know that I can get to. Does that make sense? And you need to and it can't be too little. But it does have to be accessible. And then, most importantly, you have to have some feeling around it. It has to be something that you can really get excited about and play with. Okay? It says here, Ernest again, and he gets a little wordy sometimes, so stick with me. The law is infinite and perfect. It is. But in order to make a demonstration, which happens at the end, we must have a mental equivalent of the things we desire. A demonstration, like anything else in the objective life, is born out of a mental concept. The mind is the fashioning factor, and according to range, vision, and positiveness will be the circumstance or experience. For example, if one sees only unloveliness in others, it is because unloveliness is a strong element in himself or herself. He or she is getting back what he is sending out. Think about that. If a man or a woman believes themselves to be a failure and that it's useless for them to try to be anything else, he or she carries the mental equivalent of failure. So he succeeds in being a failure according to law. Wow, okay? So having a strong picture or a mental concept and holding to that equivalent regardless of circumstances or conditions, we must sooner or later manifest according to the concept. Okay. Wow. So we build this nice mental equivalent. Where's the line between what's possible and what's not? Does anybody know? Nobody knows. But I'll tell you, something that Reverend Donald said to me years ago in one of these talks that has always stuck with me is the enemy of the best is often the good. If your life's good enough, no need to make any changes. Who decides what's good enough? You do. And if good enough has been based on what you've always had and what you've always done, that's cool. But you'll always get the same thing. I love this. Anybody ever heard of Gregory Boyle? He's a Catholic priest who works with homeless, he calls them his homies. They're my brain just went south. Happens when you get old. Okay. They're kids on the streets in West LA. And they're tough kids. And he says this: human beings are settlers. We are. But not in the pioneer sense. It's our human occupational hazard to settle for little. We settle for purity and piety when we're being invited to an extravagant holiness. We settle for the fear-driven when love longs to be our engine. We settle for a puny, vindictive God when we're being nudged away, always closer to this wildly inclusive, larger than any life God. Think about that. Think what this center could be. We allow our sense of God to atrophy. We settle for the illusion of separation when we are endlessly asked to enter into kinship with all. Don't settle. Allow yourself to do and be and have whatever you would like to do and be and have. You can't overdream, guys. You can have what you want. This center can be whatever you choose it to be, as long as you know what's happening in the middle there. And let your belief systems change. That's why this is a pump. Because if your belief system tells you, if the product tells you, okay, I'm not good enough, you get a chance to try it again with a different idea. And again with a different idea. And again with a different idea. So then, here we are. We got this pump going. Okay? And we know that it's going to work, and God's in charge and all that stuff. A long time ago, I was working with a couple that, as a practitioner, with a couple that he needed a job. He really had needed a job. And they were good religious scientists. They knew all of the right things to do. They knew that they had to pray every day. They knew they knew how this stuff works, and they'd keep putting things in, and nothing happened. He every day, all day, they would sit and pray for a job. And they prayed, and it was months, and they were so frustrated because they know this stuff works, and nothing was happening. They were praying every day so hard that he forgot to go out and look for a job. Somebody said, it wasn't Ernest Holmes, but somebody says you have to treat, which means to pray, but you also have to move your feet. Okay. And that, my friends, is up to you. There are no saviors. Nobody's going to do this for you. Sometimes you have to actually apply for the job. You have to get out and do whatever else you need to do to make this stuff happen for you. Stephen Cope, from a lovely book called The Great Work of Your Life. I know people who have been stuck in doubt their entire lifetime. Each of these unfortunate individuals, some of them my very own friends and family, came at some point to a crossroad and found themselves rooted there with one root firmly planted on each side of the intersection. One foot firmly planted on each side. Alas, they never moved off the dime. They procrastinated. They dithered. Finally, they put a folding chair smack in the center of that crossroad and lived there for the rest of their lives. After a while, they forgot entirely that there even was a crossroad. Forgot that they had a choice. It's up to you to do this. And you know you can. Whether it's something in your personal life, something for this center, something that you want for your children. Whatever it is that's calling you, know that you can have it. And you can easily have it. See, this is the deal. This is easy. It's easy to do. That's the beautiful thing. You just have to want it. And then you have to treat and move your feet a little. But most importantly, you have to have fun. That's what we learned over here today. That's what we learned in so many places. If it's not fun, don't do it. If it's not fun, it really isn't something you want, is it? So it's going to be fun. Last week on the internet, I found this great thing from Anthony Hopkins. Maybe you saw it too. And this is your homework for the weekend, okay? Enjoy the ride. None of us are getting out of here alive. So please stop treating yourself like an afterthought. Eat the delicious food, walk in the sunshine, jump in the ocean. Say the truth that you're carrying in your heart like a hidden treasure. Be kind. Be silly. Be weird. There's no time for anything else. So there you go. Let's pray together. We recognize right now the infinite wisdom, the infinite love, the infinite peace and joy, which is God, is right here in this room, right here in your hearts, always there, never not. And as we recognize that spirit right now, as we feel that beautiful feeling in our hearts, we breathe into that knowing. We know that this infinite wisdom, this thing we call God, is right here. That it wants for us what we want for ourselves. And that we have the ability to use this entire Godness in the creation of our lives. And so right now, we consider that. Whatever it is that you wish in your life, come forward now and share that with the practitioners. And so we know right now, in this blessed moment, that the power and the presence of the divine is right here in this room, right here in our hearts, and that those things that we've spoken are right now on their way as we speak. We know for this day, a day of joy and love and laughter. We know for this day, all good is possible. That this sacred place we call the Center for Spiritual Living lives in our hearts and lives in this world, full and complete, a blessing to all who come. We know God's blessings are everywhere, right here in our hearts. I am so grateful to know this work, to be here in this beautiful sacred space, to know that our words become the law becomes what is, that that which we choose is ours right now. So these words have been put into the law, which always ever says yes. Right now, there's nothing more to do except in deep gratitude to let it be. As together we say, and so it is.